At the 4-H building. One of the things is, if you know somebody that needs a meal, that wants, could use a meal for that Saturday, I got some of these forms in my office there. You fill it out, and we'll try to get it to the right people, so people could receive a meal. I know, there's people that don't get meals on Saturdays and have to just eat whatever they have. Sometimes it isn't very much. I'm not talking to you, Harold. Sorry, I gotta pick one, Harold. They gotta take a little air out of the tires, don't they? Ron?
You don't mind.
You don't mind? Oh, man. It's been
As
a
long as
good
you're
day.
talking about it, you like it.
Okay. Doesn't care what you're saying about him,
No, not
just
at all.
mention his name, huh? Mention his name. So, well, we've had some good days, and again, if you saw the paper, got Fred and Malachi and some others made the front page of the paper, walked through the parade and stuff, and again, from what I hear, they had a good time, those were in the van. Uh-oh.
You get a little wild.
Did you keep her in control, Ken, or did you?
That's not gonna make it.
Okay, okay,
Control
all
was
right,
not in the
all
ban.
right. But again,
It might tend to incriminate me.
Discretion.
but again, don't forget, the Christmas parade will be December the 3rd. I think it's at 10 or 11 that morning. So it's on a Saturday morning. So again, plan on that. I don't know, well, I know Mike makes a big float and stuff. So, again, I'm part of this time right now, I'm just sitting back, watching, see what we do. Okay, so. Byron, good to see you, man. Missed you this morning.
We did? Oh, excuse me.
Hey, but Ron get a cinnamon roll for you though. And a donut. So, all right, let's get into this real quick. We're going to again be at 1 Samuel chapter 1. And we're gonna move a little bit further. We're going to start in verse 11. No, it's 11? No, not 11. Samuel, 1 Samuel. Verse 12, I believe. Verse 12, to the end of the chapter there. I was hoping I could fly through this, but a little bit. We're doing a lot more than we have done the last few weeks. But again, God just really impressed something on me there. And so again, we want to look at that, see what God has to say about that. Okay? But yeah, I put that phrase up there we had a couple weeks ago. The will of God is always a bigger thing than we bargained for. We must believe that whatever it involves is good, acceptable, and perfect. They're a quote by Jim Elliott. Okay? Let me read here just a few verses here to make sure I'm right here. Yeah, verse 12. Verse 12. I'm going to read a few, and then we'll talk about that. And it happened as she continued praying before the Lord that Eli watched her mouth. And Hannah spoke in her heart. On her lips moved, but her voice was not heard. Therefore Eli thought she was drunk. So Eli said to her, "How long will you be drunk? Put your wine away from you." And Hannah answered and said, "No, my Lord, I'm a woman of sorrowful spirit. I have drunk neither wine nor intoxicating drink, but I have poured out my soul before the Lord. Do not consider your maidservant a wicked woman, for out of the abundance of my complaint and grief I have spoken until now." So guys, come to you, God. Thank you for this day. Thank you for this time. God, thank you for your word. And God, just may you reveal your love to us through these verses. Lord, also speak to our hearts, God. May we be changed and be changed by you and you alone, God. In our prayer. Amen. So again, we've got this here now. Remember last we talked about that she got up, and that meant she, basically, sorry, I ate too much back there. So we had stew, and it was really good. So I had 2 bowls, and had a little bit too much extra cornbread. Now, I thought I was going to get a scoop, and we just got half a bowl. I didn't realize the scoop filled the whole bowl. So yeah, but it was good. It was really good. And so, no, it was. It was good. It was good. So, remember last we talked about, one of the points I looked at was that she got up. That she got up. It wasn't just she got up to go her dishes away from eating dinner. But she got up and she was ready to make a point, ready to make a decision. Okay? And so basically she gets up and goes to the synagogue there to pray. And so there in verse 12 we see that. Before that she comes to the temple and she prays and tells God, what she wants and directly what she wants, and makes a vow, a Nazirite vow. But then as she goes on there, again, Eli, who, it doesn't really say, it really gives you more of a, as you read this, kind of more of, you've got to picture this in your mind. She's on this bench, it sounds like, praying and talking, moving her lips but not talking out loud. And Eli is somewhere not very far away because he can see her, okay? But, he doesn't know what's going on. He just thinks, man, I can see her lips talking, her moving, and, I think she's drunk. Is what he thinks. And so he confronts her a little bit. Says, hey, you need to fix yourself up. And, and then she has to make her point. She says, you know what? I'm not drunk. I've talked to the Lord, okay? Talked to the Lord, and He has heard me. And so, one thing I want to look at tonight here, and what we looked at in the last few weeks, we titled the significance, okay? She was, again, she was barren. She didn't have any children. Her, as they call it now, would be maybe a sister wife. I don't know. But, it's tormenting her.
Wrong religion.
Huh?
Wrong religion.
Wrong religion, I know. The second wife, I don't know what you want to call that. But, so she is, huh?
A spare?
The spare. Some of those guys have 2 or 3 spares, But, in this, she was looking for significance. And again, as I talked about before also, again, as this book starts out, the nation of Israel is looking for significance. Because they, what is it they really want? I mean, things are fine, but you know what? We want a king more than anything else. Man, we had a king that makes everything better. Just as Hannah here, hey, a child would make all the difference in the world in my life. I don't think I've shared this before. I thought about it, but I didn't. But we went to Africa back in 2008. We got to stay out in the bush with the Maasai, and those are like the native Africans. And again, those are the ones you see that again, they have these sticks with a big ball. I think I have them in my office. But basically, you can throw that thing and hit a tiger and kill it. Okay, warriors can. Lion, yeah. But the thing is, though, is that their wealth is measured in cattle. And one of our translators, he told me, he goes, man, you know what? If I could just have one cow, I'd be rich. It's much like Hannah here. If I could have just one child, I'd be important. I'd be significant. And so, to be a mom, blessed with a child, have that as they would say also back then, kind of some inheritance, some retirement fund there, because you got your child working and helping, keeping things up, taking care of you. And so, that's one thing I want to look at here tonight, significance. And so we see that as she goes. And I think about, too, and again, it's one of the things I would talk about, too, is about the woman, the role of the woman. Again, how a woman really wasn't that important. But I think here, too, as with this, her going to the temple and praying, again, I haven't seen it read it anywhere. But the thing is, too, I wonder how awkward or out of place that would have been for her to go to the temple and pray. Because the men were, because really the women would not be as close to the inside of the temple or to the front of it. And so again, how awkward or how, abnormal that would have been. And so I think about that, she took a step and went someplace maybe she wouldn't have gone. Harold, I think you left your radio on, buddy.
You hear it thumping?
I heard it thumping.
Oh, yeah. My background, that is my background.
This was the temple, this was the
synagogue?
This was the tabernacle.
Yeah.
The temple, I mean, when they built the temple in Jerusalem, there was a special place for the women
Yeah.
where they could go. They weren't allowed to go any other place.
So you think this is
I
where
don't
she
know
was
about
at?
this, I don't know
Yeah.
about this tabernacle.
It just kind of just lists, it doesn't really describe it, does it? It doesn't really say what it is exactly, at least that I have seen. It just says they go to Shiloh to worship yearly, and so, it doesn't say.
It's my impression that this is the same tabernacle that was in the wilderness.
In the wilderness.
Joshua settled in Shiloh. He settled at the Ark of the Covenant and in the tent of meeting in Shiloh. And that would have been, once a year, people
Yeah,
were twice,
yeah.
during the feast times and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it was that, but it's a tabernacle
Yeah.
or temple or.
But yeah, still in that though, there would have been different levels you could have entered into and so forth in that. So, and so I think just again, just how brave she was to come there and pray, you know. That, you know, again, we don't see that a lot, we don't hear that a lot in the Old Testament, and anywhere really, where women stepped out and, you know, them going in before the Lord as much.
It says that she was by the doorpost
Yeah.
of the tabernacle. So that was kind of the entryway into
Yeah.
it. And
Yours says temple? Your temple, you know, and that's the hard thing, is just,
It said the priest was sitting in a chair at the doorpost.
yeah.
yeah, that's right, it does say that.
And so again, you know, that's one of the hard things, is again, we have different versions, and they all put a different word in there, and,
Same thing.
so, yeah. And so it kind of gets us lost in that, understanding all those things. It's kind of like, you know, again, when you tell the kids about the Hebrews, you know, the Hebrews, the Israelites, the Jews, all the same, aren't they? But yet, we describe them, we say different names for them. So some kids, well, what's that? What's that? So,
Schlitz.
huh?
And Schlitz.
Sure,
Hebrews.
yes.
Mine says Little
But then here, you know, again, just reading this, then in verse 17, then Eli answered and said, "Go in peace, and the God of Israel grant you petition that you have asked of him." And she said, "Let your maidservant find favor in your sight." So the woman went her way and ate, and her face was no longer sad. You know, I think about that, just, she came upset. But she came and, as I would say, gave her grievances to God. You know, told him. And I think that's one thing, if people say, well, man, you gotta be careful how you talk to God. You know what? God already knows how you feel. You know, so it doesn't hurt you to get mad and say, God, this is what I feel like. Because he knows it. But you know what? He wants to hear it from you, I believe. He wants to hear it, you know, it's like I say, you know, Christmas is coming up. And you guys, you know, some of y'all got grandkids and stuff. I'll say you have kids, but I'm pretty sure you don't worry about what they want for Christmas. But you'll ask those grandkids, how many times do you ask them what they want for Christmas? You're gonna, from now to Christmas, you're gonna ask them, some of them, if you see them more, you're gonna ask them a lot. And what do you want for Christmas? And the thing is that, you know, for some of you, some of those kids, it's gonna change from day to day, week to week. And you're like, I have no idea. It changes every day. But you know, but then there's some of you though, some of those grandkids, they're gonna say the same thing every time. And you know, with that, you're gonna know what they want, don't you? You know exactly what they're expecting, what they want. And same with us, is that God knows what we want, but he wants to hear it from us. He wants to hear and us to speak to him, and us to come to him and give those things to him. Yes, ma'am.
I can kind of associate or whatever the feelings with her because I've never been able to have children. So I was married 8 years before I ever adopted my first child. So in all those years, I would pray and ask God for a child. So I can kind of, you know, see where she's coming from. So then when I adopted the next little girl, my oldest daughter prayed because she wanted a little sister. So God gave us another little girl.
Yeah. And again, I know for us, don't mean to one up you here, but I know I'm not trying to. I know when we got married, we went, I think 6 or 7 years before we had a child. And, I know Crystal just felt like, am I broken? Am I messed up? And she would cry, and, I don't know what to do. I don't know,
And then when you see your siblings all having children,
Mhm.
you've been married a lot longer than they have,
Yeah.
That makes it harder.
Yeah, yeah. And so again, you don't, they may not say anything about, having kids, but you can feel it. You put the pressure on yourself, and you feel it, and you're like, where is this at? And so, a big deal here. And I want to read the rest of this chapter, then I want to talk about something that God just really poured on me, a part of this, and I hope I get this right. Then it says in verse 19, in chapter 1, then they arose early in the morning and worshipped before the Lord, and returned and came to their house at Ramah. And Elkanah knew Hannah his wife, and the Lord remembered her. So it came to pass in the process of time that Hannah conceived and bore a son, and called his name Samuel, saying, because I have asked for him from the Lord. Now the man Elkanah and all his house went up to offer to the Lord the yearly sacrifice and his vow. But Hannah did not go up, for she said to her husband, not until the child is weaned. Then I will take him, that he may appear before the Lord and remain there forever.
Wow.
So Elkanah, her husband, said to her, do what seems best to you. Wait until you have weaned him. Only let the Lord establish his word. Then the woman stayed and nursed her son until she had weaned him. Now when she had weaned him, she took him up with her with 3 bulls, 1 ephah of flour, and a skin of wine, and brought him to the house of the Lord at Shiloh. And the child was young. Then they slaughtered a bull and brought the child to Eli. And she said, O my Lord, as your soul lives, my Lord, I am the woman who stood by you here, praying to the Lord. For this child I prayed, and the Lord has granted me my petition, which I asked of him. Therefore, I also have lent him to the Lord. As long as he lives, he shall be lent to the Lord. So they worship the Lord there. The thing, and again, something Dick said Sunday morning about laying prostrate before the Lord. And, a few years ago, we went to Collegiate Week, and we were West Texas A&M was staying with us, and their BC director. And we got down to the end of the service there at Falls Creek, and had an invitation time, and it was ran kind of late, and we had to get the boys, and so we got them to come back in. And the director from West Texas A&M out in Canyon was, he was just laying flat on the floor. Flat on the floor. And I remember, I believe it was Malachi, asked me, goes, Dad, is he dead? I said, no, son, he's praying. And the thing is, I thought about this word right here, surrender. When you're prostrate on the ground praying, you're surrendering to the Lord everything. It says here, cease resistance to any enemy or opponent and submit to their authority. And I as I was reading this, I was thinking, well, it's just a story, we can get through that. And again, from my studying stuff, some of y'all's, our discussions, we started off with significance. She wanted a child. So she would matter. Be loved by her husband, even though he loved her greatly. Not to be tormented anymore. And yet, as we read this, as her vow that she made that night as she prayed there in front of the temple, and then as she follows through with her promise, here's what happened. She surrendered everything.
Right.
She wanted to be significant. obedience to the Lord, she became surrendered. What?
You fouled that up.
I did. Oh, maybe I missed it all. I'm missing a slide. I messed that up. I did mess that up somehow. But you know, again, because the thing, and why that's hit me so much, you know, and yes, as she talked to the Lord, but she, again, I think she made that bold step to go pray that night, to, you know, get up and do something for her situation. And you know, she wanted to be significant. She wanted her husband to love her and stuff. And again, we see this, you know, again over here, after she has a child, her husband said, you know, I trust you. You do what you need to do. And just, you know, but he did remind her, hey, trust the Lord. Wait on him to establish your ways and Samuel's ways. But, you know, as we talk about here, this inheritance, the retirement fund that you would have from having children. As I studied this, just that when she came and took Samuel and gave him to Eli, she lost all that. Because he would, you know, as she says there, in was that 28, therefore I also have lent him to the Lord. As long as he lives, he shall be lent to the Lord. So they worshiped the Lord there. She lost all that. She wanted to be significant, wanted to be important, wanted to be loved. And here, in obedience to what, you know, God had led her to do, what she committed to the Lord, she gave up everything. She had no retirement fund. Now again, when we say that, I say that, but you know, she didn't know what was coming next. And so, but I think about that. She gave up everything. You know, she wanted this, but once she met with the Lord and got serious with him, he caused her to give it all up. You know, and I think about that. I know in my life, you know, sometimes I felt the need to go forward to the altar and pray. And you know what? I started to go, man, I can't do that. I don't want people whispering, what's he doing down there? What's he doing down front? You know, he always goes down there. You know, but you know, I'm not telling you where to pray at. But sometimes we got to leave our comfort zone and go pray and really, you know, show some commitment to God. Hey, God, I really want to meet with you this time. I think that's what she did that night, but also that surrender, giving up things. And again, you know, I talked about it a little bit last week. You know, me, got to get away from the TV. You know, more. And again, I'm not running that. Oh, did I hit your toe there?
Yeah, don't move on to a different subject.
That was the problem we had this morning. Somebody said Ken was meddling, wasn't he? Yeah. And so,
Everybody got quiet.
yeah, he brought some words.
Little
That we
conviction.
tore out throughout the Bible.
Oh, yeah, we tore some stuff out of the Bible, threw it out, stuff we didn't mention.
I just
People
sat
in
there,
there
and put it ahead
Highlighting
of
your
time.
Bible with a black magic marker.
Oh, it's on gluttony.
Gluttony, yeah, we hit, talk about a little
And that
gluttony.
gluttony.
Oh, Harold.
Yeah.
TV and gluttony?
See, you hit him too.
Her
Yeah.
name never come up, I'm sorry to tell you.
But you know, here's one thing I do want to say in these last few minutes, is, you know, you go into chapter 2, and it's Hannah's prayer, and she's just, you know, again, I'll let you guys read that, but she's just praising the Lord for what he's done, but also realizing some things. You know, again, she's realizing how holy God is. Then she kind of, you know, looking at stuff. But in verse 5 there, and again, that's why I took my words back. I backed up a little bit a while ago. In verse 5 of chapter 2, it says this: those who were full have hired themselves out for bread, and the hungry have ceased to hunger. And then this part right here, I don't know if it's a little hint of something that happened. Even the barren has borne 7, and she who has many children has become feeble. You know, I don't know if maybe Hannah had 7 children after she gave Samuel up, you know.
There's somewhere in there, it tells
That she
how
had
many that she had.
further on there.
I can't remember what it was, but
Yeah.
it tells.
But, you know, again, you know, the thing too is that she surrendered to the Lord first, and he blessed her. You know, but again, you know, so many times, you know, again, what do we want? We want a plan, don't we? Okay, God, if I give this stuff up, what do I get in return? And you know,
I think this speaks a whole lot to the woman's faith. She had terrific faith.
Well, she honored her promise.
yeah,
She promised God, you give me a son, and I'm gonna give him back to you. That's kinda like we do in our world today.
mhm,
When we have children, we give them back to God, you know, through baptism, Lord, this is your child.
mhm.
So.
Dedication, yeah.
Yeah, we dedicate these children back to the Lord.
Yeah.
But she
Yeah,
had
but you
hers
take 'em home.
totally.
Yeah, but you take them home afterwards too.
Yes, yes.
And it didn't.
The
But-
fact that she gave up what she wanted the most in the
Yeah,
world.
yeah, I mean, that's thing that hit me, just, you know, we spend so much of that first few verses of chapter one, her
She
just,
was close.
you know, weeping and crying, and again, you know, don't know, but how much it drove Elkanah nuts.
She was
Well, I
probably,
can't do anything for you, I can't change anything.
I think she was probably prostrate in her prayer, and that verse 10 of 1,
Uh-huh.
when she was in anguish, and weeping and crying, she was probably literally armed prostrate to the Lord.
Could have been, yeah, and that's why I brought that up.
You say surrender, and she did that. I mean, she surrendered her child and herself actually. But in order to reach significance, it takes surrender in the Christian life, which is opposite in the world. You don't think of that. You think you're gonna conquer, you're gonna get on top, you climb, knock everybody off the ladder to get on top of it. But in the Christian life, or the faithful life, it is getting low.
Yeah.
Okay? Getting low, Ron, to rise. And I think when maybe she didn't know everything, but her prayer is very prophetic of the coming of the Messiah, the coming of the nation of who brings about forth the King. The first, 15 chapters of Samuel, I think, or 16 maybe, is all, Samuel's the center focus of all the anointing of the kings and the coming together of the kingdom, and the accepting of the people. I mean, he is the main
Yeah, I mean, it's more,
center focus. And whether she gave up her inheritance. If you read on, she got far more than she
Yeah.
really asked for. God is so much better when we do surrender ourselves.
Yes.
I don't know.
yeah, I mean, we hear what you're saying, and you're, Pat,
Yeah, in verse 21 of 2, it says the Lord visited her. She conceived and bore 3 sons and 2 daughters.
Yeah, I knew it did somewhere. I couldn't find it.
so
Thank
again,
you.
so five children there.
2:21.
And so again, you know, she did get her inheritance in that, but again, you know, I just thought, you know what? And I thought about, you know, again, about that inheritance and giving that up. You know, I think about Abraham, you know, when God calls him to go, hey, I want you to go and sacrifice your son. Well, you know, he could have said, well, God, you know, you promised me descendants, if I do this, it ain't gonna happen. You know, but Abraham was faithful and obedient and did what God had called him to do. God saw his faith and stopped it from happening, you know, and so, so again, that surrender, and again, something that Harold just said, that, you know, again, the Christian world works the opposite. You have to kind of suffer and, you know, a little bit, and then surrender totally to God, and have hard times, and then things will go. So it seems like once you surrender and totally give to God, things, you know, I don't want to say it will be better, but again, if we're totally surrendered, we're trusting God, we know He's got things in control no matter what we go through somewhat. That's like I tell students sometimes, you know, you go to Falls Creek and they have different speakers every week, and, you know, they have bands and stuff. And I don't know about all the band stuff. I know the speakers, and a lot of them will share their testimony. And let me tell you, most of them say, well, man, let me tell you, my life was easy, man, my parents were pastors, you know, dad was a pastor, man, life was great, man, never had any problems. As I tell students, I go, not a person that gets on that stage has had it easy. They didn't get there and not have any hard times, not any hard luck, not any problems in life. They had some hard times, and this is where God has brought them. And you know, so many times we idolize those people up there, you know, sometimes. I mean, again, you know, sometimes we even idolize the people we watch on TV that are pastors and stuff. But again, we don't realize the hard times they've had, and that, you know, they've had to surrender to God, trust Him in those things. Again, that's what I really saw in this tonight. That, you know, she committed her ways to God, trusted Him, and really, you know, again, I said surrendered all of her, you know, I'm going to say all of her treasures to God. Because again, her son was her treasure at that point in time. And even before he came along, she'd already said, I'm giving him to you if you give me one. You know? And so I just thought, man, you know, are we surrendered? Oh yeah, that's a slide. That may be why I got rid of it. You don't step on anybody's toes a little bit. But again, it spoke to me, you know, what does your story of surrender look like? But then by the core, have you fully surrendered to God? Sorry, Harold, your toes got stepped on again. And again, I think it's one of those things too, it's not just, well, yeah, I did that 30 years ago. But I think that surrender has to happen daily.
Right.
Because we have, you know, we wake up or go to bed, we're thinking, man, this is what's going to happen. It's going to be a great day. You know, I'm going to do this. And you know what? People are going to say how great I spoke today in front of...
Give it a,
but, you know, we think now, you know, I did something good today. People are going to recognize me tomorrow for it. And yet, you know what? You got to surrender to say, hey, you know what? It's not about me. It's about God, you know.
In the context of what we're talking about, I take two words out of your little slide,
Okay?
enemy and
Yeah.
opponent.
Yeah.
God is not our enemy, He's not our opponent.
True.
We certainly do need to submit to His
Submit,
authority,
yeah.
but
Well, this here was
That's just a definition.
the definition I Googled. It's,
Yeah.
yeah,
I take those two words
yeah,
out.
well, but though some people though
Yeah.
look at God as the enemy or the opponent, like He's stopping me.
well,
Not a Christian.
But
Jacob,
they're not a Christian.
Jacob struggled with the Lord, and he had to surrender. He said, I won't give up until you bless me. And so God had to pull his hip out of joint. Israel means to struggle with or to contend with the Lord. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't see any. I mean, he's not an enemy,
Yeah,
but he
no.
is an opponent because Jacob had his name
Not my
changed.
opponent.
Israel.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is, again, you know, I mean, I agree with what you're saying, Ken, enemy or opponent, yeah, he shouldn't be, but sometimes we do say, God, why don't you do this in my life? God, why are you holding me back? Why aren't you? And again, sometimes that is kind of we kind of make him, through our words, our enemy. Our
Think you
opponent.
think God is our adversary?
Well, he is our,
Do you think so?
no, but,
This is either or, it's not
yeah,
just
yeah.
an enemy, it's
Yeah.
either or, and Harold.
I mean, I'm just saying, I don't think he's not my adversary.
Do you think she went to the synagogue though thinking that God may be her opponent, keeping her from having children? That's why she poured her heart out?
No, I think she went there knowing that he had the power or the authority to
Yeah.
make her, to make it so that she could have a child, and she should surrender to him, asking him to do that for her. I don't see any adversarial situation here at all. I'm sorry, I just.
Well, I see what you're saying, yeah. But again, I think too, is sometimes God is not our adversary, but sometimes
But
we
situations can be. Her
fight him.
situation was her adversary.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
And
situation,
so
yeah,
she
And
had to
anybody ever
surrender.
said, God, why is this happening?
yeah.
The situation was, but not God.
Yeah, but God, but again,
No one else to go to.
Well,
Yeah.
and I look at it like this too, I fought with the Lord and ran from the Lord, poked him in the eye. Used
Yes,
his
so
name,
did I.
I used his name in vain, I was his adversary, in fact, the Bible called me his enemy.
Until you
Until
surrender.
I surrendered to his authority.
That man's
And he
dead
became
though,
my
isn't
Lord.
he? That man's dead.
Yeah, I understand, but he is our adversary.
For a time in your life,
For a time.
you know, change it up.
The idea of surrender just means to let
To
go.
give up.
Give
There's a
up.
song,
Give up
I
the fight.
surrender all.
Yeah,
Submit to the authority.
yeah. You know, it's again, like, the other thing I came to was again, the story of Saul on the Damascus Road. You know, when the Lord looks down upon Saul and says, Saul, Saul, why do you kick against the
Yeah,
goads? Why do you
yeah.
kick against me?
He
Again,
accepted Jesus at that
that's
point.
right, that's right. That's
Things
right.
are supposed to change at that point.
Yes, yes, and they did in his life. They did, and I think, you know, they do in our lives too. So, but I mean, that was just I wanted to see what did, you know, again, when I Googled that, just to see what surrender meant.
That's just a definition.
That's just a definition of that, because again, we have to give up something. And again, when people come to the Lord, like,
You have to give up your sin.
give up your sin,
Yeah.
give up your habits, give up your old ways,
Submit.
do that.
I don't have a problem with it, calling it a definition.
Okay.
It's just that in the context, like I was gonna start with,
Yeah,
in the context that we're using it tonight, those two words need to be taken out of it.
I see.
Submit to the authority, yes, absolutely,
Yeah.
but those two words need to be in there, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, I can see your point there. I can see your point. So, but again, you know,
At that time in history, when a woman was barren, they believed it was because sin in her life. God just
And then God
was
closed
Yeah.
up the womb.
yeah, I mean, yeah, there was, a lot of things back then
Yeah.
referred to sin in your life, you know.
Yep.
Again, any problems you had, there must have been sin in your life. Again, like Job, you know, his three friends said, man, you need to repent and ask for forgiveness, you know, because you've done some.
Somebody didn't know you was talking about God, they could read like, you submit to whatever your enemy wants done.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
It's,
Mhm.
it's
Yeah,
with that enemy or opponent and the way it's put to me, well, God's not mentioned, Christ isn't mentioned. But to look at it, it's like, okay, if somebody hates you or is your enemy, you're still supposed to do what they want you to do, whether it's right or wrong, because it says submit to them.
yeah, yeah.
That's what kind of,
Yeah, it's a tough battle, and the way we use words, or want to use them, or not use them.
now if that enemy or opponent going in there, then you
Yeah, you wouldn't.
and people knew you was talking about
Yeah,
God in the Bible, well, then it wouldn't bother you, but that, an enemy or opponent, it's,
Mhm. I mean, you know, again, like Ken said a little bit, just that, you know, before he knew Christ, God was your enemy, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, he was the enemy. He was, and you know, it wasn't so much God fighting you fighting him.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, and so again, we are more the enemy or the opponent than God, than what we would say, than God would be. Because God isn't. He is there to love and care for us, and he wants us to come to him. But we don't always see it that way, do we?
No, that's better.
There's a little song that I remember that Sunday school teacher or it might have been during vacation Bible school. She taught us when I must have been about 9 years old or 11. And it went like this. God's still working on me to make me what I ought to be.
There you go.
Okay,
You see, I'm not finished. Isn't that good, Ron?
yeah, that's excellent.
But what I mean is, yeah, you know, I'm not there yet, and yet, so I still contend sometimes with, and maybe that's my adolescence and my Christianity or whatever, but I still struggle with some issues with God
Sure you do.
and roll them out, and sometimes I run out of words. And my wife thinks I'm drunk, and I'm like, no, honey, I'm not drunk. I hadn't touched anything in 15, 20 years, and so there ain't no way. And so, I mean, yeah, I can identify with Hannah.
And so again, just, I mean, you know, think about that again. Us surrendering our lives, you know, again, have we fully surrendered everything? Are we we still holding on to certain things, you know, that we want this, we want, you know, we've gotta have that, and our focus on stuff, so. Again, I've held you over again. Lee?
But I'm gonna leave her
Good
alone.
stuff.
James 4:10, humble yourself before the Lord, and he will exalt you.
That's not in my Bible, that was when I inked out.
Yeah, you know,
But she did, she humbled herself, went and prayed, prostrated, I don't know.
yeah, we don't know how she prayed, but
Yeah.
again, she was at
She was-
the end of her, in a sense, end of her rope. in a sense.
She was
I think
there.
the Lord knew her heart.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
I'm sure
He
she was
did.
pretty earnest in her.
yes.
But according to scripture, women were in the temple because Anna, the prophetess that recognized Jesus, she spent all her, this widowhood, and she was only married a few years, and she was the oldest recorded woman in the Bible, that's what I've heard. I haven't dug into it, but that's what I've heard.
She was only 87. How old are you, Bess?
I'm older than that.
All
I'm
right,
sorry.
we better pray before we get too far gone here tonight. Dear guys, do come and thank you for your word. I think for this time, go to study your word, to talk about it, God. God, I pray also, God, may we just hear from you and know what you have called us to do. Know what you're calling of us. And God, may we just again, Lord, look to you as we go. Look to your guidance and wisdom and strength for the days ahead. I pray most of all, God, we would trust you, what you call us to do, wherever you want us to go. God, I pray again for these that we've mentioned for our prayer requests, Lord, many needs. For those who are sick and hurting, those who have lost loved ones. Lord, again, those who have gone astray, God. Lift them up to you, God. And we thank you for all you do. In the name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen.